Hi, I am Marion Grobb Finkelstein, and welcome to MarionSpeaks Workplace Communication Consulting and Training. Have you noticed lately that people seem to be on edge? It's just maybe a sign of the times. There are always reasons why people behave the way they do. Leaders understand that. It could be past experiences, learned behaviors, lack of sleep, undue stress from some source, or it could be COVID fatigue. Sound familiar? There are explanations that could go on to offer why somebody is behaving in a certain way. What leaders realize beyond that is this: an explanation is no excuse, especially for bad behavior. There is no excuse. Explaining one's behavior or perspective doesn't give them free license to behave however they want. It doesn't work that way. Explanations are useful. They can provide that insight and build understanding, and that leads ultimately sometimes to forgiveness and moving forward. Those are all great things. Those explanations are useful to know. However, explanations never excuse inappropriate behavior. They are not a license to behave in whatever way you feel like. There are some people who may believe the Machiavellian approach is appropriate, where the ends justifies the means, and that is seldom the way that effective leaders communicate. They just don't. And whether it's in the playground or in the boardroom, bully behavior, disrespectful behavior is not appropriate. I had a boss once, a number of years ago, that reminds me of this concept that bad behavior can be explained, but should not be excused. He was a little bit bombastic. We would go to boardroom meetings and there would be 20 people gathered around, and he managed by shouting and banging his fist on the board table. And he looked like a child having a temper tantrum. You never really knew what personality was walking through the door on any given day. It's pretty difficult. And during a flight that he and I had one time when we were going to a meeting, he was seated right beside me, and I had a couple uninterrupted hours where I could actually speak to him. And I grabbed the opportunity and I explained to him that sometimes his message was really useful and would be useful for people to hear, for the employees to hear, that they needed and they wanted to hear his messaging. What they remembered, however, was the vehicle in which that message was delivered. It was so volatile. They remembered the way in which the message was delivered, and the message itself was forgotten. Again, the explanation as to why this person was behaving that way is one thing. It does not excuse that behavior. Leaders don't behave that way. He was never a good boss. He never became a good boss. In fact, he had several lawsuits against him and was eventually given a golden handshake and asked to leave. Leaders do not use excuses or explanation as excuses for their behaviors. They assume responsibility, and they know that their actions and their behaviors result in consequences. So what do leaders do? Well, if you find yourself on the edge, and these days, a lot of people are stressed to the nines. If you find yourself on the edge, take responsibility for your emotions and control them before they explode. Take a step back, take a breather, talk to a colleague, speak to a confidant, write out, journal. Give yourself self-care so you can come back refreshed, so that the vehicle in which you deliver your important message will be more likely well received. Don't let your message be lost in the way in which you're delivering it. If the behavior is really poor and disrespectful, that is what people will remember, not your message. If other people in your workplace are behaving poorly and you're leading them, And you are part of the silent majority, no doubt, because there are often just a very small minority of people who are the very vocal minority. And if that's your situation, then speak up. If you are part of the silent majority, it's your right, it's your privilege, it's your responsibility to speak up and shine your light on that darkness. Shine your light on what people are doing right. Catch them doing right things. Draw boundaries on how people are allowed to speak to you and communicate with you. That is completely appropriate. And if somebody crosses that line, condemn that behavior. Don't tolerate it. Let them know that behavior is disrespectful and not allowed. They don't have permission to treat you that way or to communicate with you in that way. That's not what leaders do. Leaders don't communicate disruptively like that. A final reminder is an explanation is no excuse. Yes, there are reasons, and some very legitimate reasons, why people are behaving the way they do. If that behavior is expressed poorly as disrespect, bad communication, bad leadership, that doesn't cut it. The lesson is this: communicate constructively, listen attentively, and lead with kindness and respect. That's what good leaders do. Until our paths cross again, I am Marion Grobb Finkelstein, wishing for you better communication, better business, better life. Cheers, everyone.